I love New Mutants, but I can't recommend anyone read this book. It's really good, but the greatness comes with certain caveats. Firstly, New Mutants is a slow burn. This is one of those books where you can read a single issue and be satisfied, but you really gotta read all 50 issues to really get it. The heart of the book is with the characters' transformations from kids to capable heroes. Second, this is a horror book. New Mutants is about the horrors kids face. There's some extremely disturbing material here, with kids being whipped by their parents. There is trafficking. One of these scenes is of an underage teenager being chased by adult men. There's a mutant named Empath who uses his powers to take advantage of women. Not everyone's gonna enjoy reading something like that. And thirdly, parts of the book kind of blows. The first year is kind of unremarkable. After a good arc, you might find yourself struggling to pay attention to the next one. So, if the book is this horrifying, inconsistent mess, why do I love it so much? Because New Mutants does one thing really well: character development. The first issue is probably the single worst issue in the series. Then each following issue is a little bit better. For 13 issues, the series never really gets past But even in these early bad issues, I love the protagonist of the series, Mirage, Dani Moonstar. She begins as a weak-willed girl who's a loner. She runs away from danger. She has this lame power of being able to project people's fears and desires outward. Pretty useless power if you're attacking. It's even worse because she can't really control it early on. An evil spirit haunts Dani's nightmares, and she's so disturbed by it to the point of taking a knife and considering ending it all. Jesus. This is a starting point of Dani. Her friends are in danger, so it's do or die. Dani forces herself to go out there and face her fears. The horrors she comes across are enough to disturb me. I mean, look at this. Ugh. Dani learns to control her power. She learns to use it against her foes. I love this scene where she makes this one goon see an angry, very violent Wolverine. The issue tries to play this as really serious moment, and like Dani cries over it, but I don't know, it's really funny to me. I can't help it. Slowly, over the course of the run, Dani grows from this weak little girl into a complete and utter badass. She grows into a leader. She becomes a Valkyrie, with like a literal Asgardian Valkyrie, with cool new armor and a new ability to see if someone's gonna die. She gets a pet Pegasus she uses to fly around. She's like an RPG character with a terrible start but an incredible endgame build. I love Dani's transformation, and that arc is the one thing New Mutants does exceptionally well. It takes a long time to get there, too long if you ask me, but man, if it's not satisfying. I want to show off one of my favorite issues of New Mutants, issue 41. This issue is a completely standalone issue. It's a Dani solo story. This issue follows Dani as she returns to her hometown. There, she meets an old friend, Pat. Pat has grown up to become a racist, and he hates Dani's guts. Dani also has a vision of Pat dying, so she now has to choose if she's willing to fight the quite literal death in order to save the boy who hates her. This issue has Dani going around and thinking about where she's at and all the plot lines and the events that have happened to her. She's a mutant, she's Native American, she's a Nordic Valkyrie. It's a lot of identities, a lot of things happening and going on. One of the interesting, I think, character traits of Dani is the fact that she has a tendency to run away from problems. This issue, she returns home to see her mom and dad, although they kind of like have to leave. There's like a snowstorm coming, so they leave, and it's her alone, being her old home. She, hasn't seen it in years, so you get to see this older Dani kind of return home and just be nostalgic, remembering what it was like as a kid and have all those memories of time gone by. He goes about just his shopping and just hanging out. A lot of thought. This is very dialogue heavy. A lot of thought bubbles. Until she comes across an old friend, Pat. Pat isn't somebody who she used to be very tight with, somebody very close to her as a child. But Dani couldn't control her powers back in the day, so she apparently took Pat's nightmares and desires and showed them in front of everybody by accident, which led to them separating, and Dani ultimately left to go with her grandfather and eventually ended up at the Xavier's. Now, years later, Pat has become a bit of a racist. He is kind of bullying her, taking her clothes and just mocking her and saying just really messed up stuff. Dani meets an old friend who just isn't the man he used to be. A real plot click kicks in as Dani has a vision. Part of her powers is that she can see people who are going to die in the near future, and she has this vision with Pat. Pat is marked for death, and she kind of is in a bit of a weird position where this person like hates her and seems to want her straight up dead, but she also still cares for him a little bit, and he's going to die. So that's a little bit of complicated emotion and a lot of emotions going on, a lot of weirdness. And the rest of the issue follows Danny as she tries to save Pat and tries to deal with her emotions. And it's a phenomenal issue. I love it. It's a very thoughtful issue. It's really one of the absolute standouts of the series. Might be straight up my favorite issue. The art is great. It's interesting to me where it's like early on in the series, Danny, the way Bob McLeod drew Danny straight up looked like a 13-year-old something. Like, she looks really young in the early days. And here, like, Jackson Guice is the artist, and he draws Danny older. And there's like a visible physical difference between old Danny and young Danny. There's a difference between the way series reads. It's a lot more mature, a lot better about handling these character stuff than the early days. All of this adds to the feeling of slow burn. Of course, a lot of this is just natural development and just the art getting better, the book gaining a stronger identity, but it also kind of ends up working out for the character arcs. It feels like it fits. And I love this nostalgic feeling for the past, being sad about certain things will never be again. And then there are those things that it's just nice to see, but you're in a different place, so you can't really, it's like you see your whole home and it's just you're in a different place. It just isn't the same place anymore to you. It's like just like a natural feeling that comes with age. And Pat's character is really interesting because New Mutants is very interested in more complicated characters, more complicated people. So Danny, he's a hero, but also a bit of a coward. You have, like the headmaster for half the series is going to be Magneto. Magneto is, of course, a bad guy who's trying to be good, and it's very complicated people, like it's morally, just their intentions and history and motivations. It's a lot. Pat is this bully, very stereotypical kind of racist and bully, but he used to be better. So there's that change, which adds a little bit of depth to him. But as the story goes on, we learn more about Pat. And one of the major things, the major thing, Danny accidentally, her powers get loose and she projects Pat's desires and fears. Pat wants to seemingly murder Danny, like straight up, like the Vision swings at Danny with an axe. So there's a violent intention, a violent desire. And the other Vision is them married. Pat loves Danny, presumably because they used to be so tight as kids, but Danny revealed him in front of his people and left him. It's led to this feeling of resentment, that love has turned into anger and hatred. But it's not just one emotion. He's trying to put up an act, even to a degree. He's hiding this love. And it's a very complicated, interesting thing. That's the thing that New Mutants really likes. It's not just pure horror of like evil things. A lot of these characters are just complicated. It doesn't excuse Pat. He's a horrible person, but there's depth to it. And I like seeing that. You kind of see where it comes from, how it's developed. And it really sets New Mutants a little bit apart from a lot of other books in that regard. The last part of the book is Danny trying to save Pat. Danny is facing an impossible challenge of fighting off death. Her being forced to confront her cowardice nature. One of my absolute favorite lines from this issue is one of the last ones. Some battles are not meant to be won, just fought. I think it's a phenomenal line. It's such a good line. And I believe, I'm not going to go check every single one of these issues, but I believe this story is the turning point for Danny, where she kind of no longer runs away the same way she used to. After this point, this is like the last time she straight up runs away from issues and she kind of begins to confront issues. I might be wrong. I'm not going to go double check, but it is a major point for her to grow. And I love seeing her confront death, the ultimate fear. I think all the artists on New Mutants do well, but the standout is, of course, Bill Sienkiewicz. The first 13 issues aren't that good. The next 5 are good, but it's not until Sienkiewicz specifically comes on board that the book really takes off, and it's one of those cases where the jumping quality is absolutely because of the art. Claremont's writing improves as he gets more comfortable with the characters, and as he does, he begins to push for more daring stories. The big reason why I think Claremont got more daring is because of Sienkiewicz. The duo introduces a character of Warlock, an alien who can change forms into pretty much anything. He can extend his bodies, turn into a helicopter or a wall or a space rocket. Pretty much anything goes. Warlock works on a cartoon logic, and such a character relies almost entirely on the artist to make happen. So I'd imagine Sienkiewicz's art made Claremont push for stranger places, or Sienkiewicz was specifically asking for this kind of weirder stuff. Sienkiewicz and Claremont create the character of Legion, an extremely powerful telepath whose mind is fractured into multiple personalities, all with their own powers and agendas. The heroes must travel inside Legion's mind and confront the mutant who can alter the very reality around them. The visuals are stunning, and it's an odd read, definitely, but you can't do this with every artist. Sienkiewicz brings the trippy visuals that elevates the book into something greater. No disrespect to Bob McLeod, who created New Mutants, or Sal Buscema, who wrote one of my favorite arcs with the introduction of magic. It's less about these artists being weak, and more about Sienkiewicz just taking it to another level. My second favorite artist, or possibly even my favorite, is Jackson Guice. Guice hones down the abstract art into something more concrete, which is easier to read and I think is better for a lot of these issues. He uses the weirder stuff when something happens that calls for it, like when Warlock or Magus show up. Flows better, it's easier to read. On Warlock's backstory, I really want to mention his father, Magus. Whenever a child is born, Magus fights the baby to the death. Bro is spawn trapping babies. But Warlock is one that manages to escape and crash lands on Earth. Magus threatens to one day find Warlock, because I guess Bro is really insistent on dropkicking some babies. Gotta get them before they can fight back, you know. A baby alien running away from his father. Another lost misfit finds a home at Xavier's Second Choices. My favorite arc of the run is probably the Demon Bear arc. The bear is a personal story of this monster that haunts Danny. The bear killed her parents, and now it's her turn, and she has to confront her inner demon that has turned quite literal. This arc is credible because it's the first issue Sienkiewicz comes on board with, but it's also a turning point for Danny. Danny takes control of her life. She grows closer to the team. She kind of learns to be more confident. She kind of gets over a lot of her problems. The art is incredible. The character development is great. The action is great. I love this issue. I love the way I love the story. I love the way it looks. The very first thing we see in the series is basically Danny accidentally taking another member, Karma's fears, and showing her most traumatic memories in front of everybody. Karma was a character who was assaulted. Like, this is like literally one of the very first things, one of the very first pages we see. Kind of shows what kind of a book this is. Karma goes through a lot. As the series goes on, she actually ends up becoming evil. And this evil Karma arc is also another highlight, I feel like. She's another powerful psychic who can control people. And in her arc, she takes over New Mutants' minds and turns them into her servants. She becomes this monster inflicting cruelties upon innocents, taking away their autonomy and violating them in a horrifying way. In a way where that she even kind of was done to. The remaining New Mutants have to work together to save their friends from Karma, and hopefully save Karma from herself. This is the arc that honestly disturbed me the most. Like, I don't know, something about seeing a former friend, especially one who's going through things she has, it hurts. The twist of the story is that she's taken over by Shadow King, who's using her to gain power. It's a very violating act. I would argue, like, it would be better off if the backstory never was as dark as it was, and we just kept this as the metaphor. Once defeated, Karma returns to the mansion where she begins her healing journey. Even though the book is very dark, it kind of tends to give you a little bit of elation at the end, gives you that hopefulness. It's not just pure misery. It does have a hopefulness to it. Not that there isn't no evil in the world or that we can ever be free from the evils of the world, but we can heal. There is still more life, and I think that's kind of beautiful. For a character like Illyana. Illyana is a character who goes through a lot, even without recapping the entire story. I made an entire video about magic, but this is her story of becoming more hopeful, more open, and, you know, kind of joining back into society after going through one of the most messed up origin stories I've ever seen. It's a beautiful arc, I feel like, and it's really interesting to see her grow closer to these people. Like, a big part of this book is relationship, as it is filled with teenage angst in there, because of course it is. For Illyana, she kind of grows closer to Kitty Pryde, and I don't know, like, you know, like, she's a brooding loner. This is her seemingly opening herself up and finding a happy place with people. Okay, great. When it comes to Kitty, I'm a little confused by parts of it. Like, during the 80s, apparently Jim Shooter censored queer relationships. This seems to be a book that kind of suffers from that. As Kitty and Illyana, to me, comes across like they're meant to have something more. One of my favorite issues is issue 36, where Beyonder grants Illyana her greatest wish. She becomes free of her inner demon. But in a cruel twist, the curse is laid upon Kitty Pryde instead. Like, they're some sort of soulmates. Only Illyana or Kitty can even hold the sword at all, which implies a special connection between them. In order to save her roommate, Illyana takes back her wish and becomes Darkchild once more. This to me kind of seems to indicate that there is a greater passion between the characters. And it's like, okay, I can see a romance there, but Kitty is not part of the book. Like, she's gone for most of the issues. Like, she appears like once every 10 issues, you know, like drops in and then just leaves. She doesn't interact a whole lot with Illyana, so it kind of feels a little bit hollow. I don't think it's working out. It just feels like that doesn't feel like a relationship. Another relationship that works a lot better is Danny and Rain. Rain and Danny have a relationship, and it's a lot more in your face. Like, these two characters are always talking. Whenever Danny goes through something, Rain is the one who goes to talk to Danny. Rain and Danny have some sort of psychic connection where they can kind of feel each other's emotions. You know, whenever one of them gets into trouble, the other one can sense it. When Rain transforms into a wolf, Danny can sense that. There is a clear bond between them. They're always hanging about together. It's like, that to me feels a lot stronger and much more believable. And I don't know, clearly Claremont can do this kind of stuff, so I don't really understand what's happening with Kitty and Ileana. I feel like those two are really weak. Maybe Kitty and Ileana get developed in the Uncanny X-Men more. That is completely plausible. But here, just going by New Mutants, I'm not feeling them. Ileana has more chemistry with Danny and DaCosta and Cannonball of all people than Kitty, and that's just not right. I do also kind of love Layla and Sam Guthrie's Cannonball's relationship. They're just adorable together. Layla is this intergalactic alien thief who just happens to look like a rocket chick. Like, I really don't know how else to describe it. It's really cute. It's very physical. It's very fun. It's really funny. I love these two together. There's a lot of really fun banter between them. They're really cute. And Yule #1 is her introduction, and it's one of the best issues in the series. This is probably honestly the best relationship in the series, because it's allowed to actually show up on the page, unlike the other two. It's kind of unfair to compare them, but it is a really good relationship, and I love these two together. The last relationship that I have to mention is Doug and Warlock. These two have a bromance in the comic book, and it's really adorable, honestly. I don't know, it's just really wholesome. Like, just two bros just hanging about. It's cool. New Mutants doesn't use metaphors. Like, there can be metaphors, like in this Karma story, but Karma's backstory, right? There's no metaphor. Like, this is straight up what it is. It's really horrifying. Like, the first thing we see about DaCosta is him getting jumped. Like, somebody attacks him and says they're gonna beat him to a pulp because you can't hide the color of your skin. Like, that's not there's no metaphor. There's no mutant dome involved in anything. This is just really old school hardcore racism, like violent racism. Like, there is a metaphor with him turning black and powerful, but it's like quite shocking to see. Like, some of the characters, like Amara comes in and she gets a 4-issue story dedicated to her. Essentially, what is her origin, how she joins the New Mutants. It's an epic story. I'm not sure if 4 issues was needed for that. But Amara gets few follow-up issues after that and basically disappears from the book. Like, she's in the background, but I don't think she has another issue dedicated to her. And I'm not sure if she even has a B-plot in any of the next 40 issues dedicated to her. Like, she just kind of disappears in the background. And it's a shame. The other character who gets sacrificed is DaCosta. DaCosta is in the book. He's moping around a lot. He's very brooding, very angry, but he doesn't really get a lot of issues. Ileana and Danny take the most issues here, and I love them, and I'm glad they have their issues, but I do feel like these other characters needed some more issues. Like, it's inefficient in the way it gets through these storylines. The benefit of it is at least that Danny and Ileana are some of my favorite Marvel characters, at least. They are incredible. And towards the end of the run, Ileana specifically has 2 good stories, or 2 issues specifically that really stood out to me. One is issue 50, Father's Day. Ileana is trapped alone in limbo and kind of has to go on this journey alone. It's just her lone wolfing against the world, and it's just her journey back home. She's, trying to escape limbo to space to hopefully finding, Xavier. And it is just beautiful, like this girl trying to find her adopted father and find safety with him. It's a beautiful story, and I love this story from Ileana. Interestingly, 2 issues later, issue 52 is another issue where Ileana has some of the best scenes. It's not as much about Ileana-centric issue, I believe. Issue 52 is kind of about the emotional climax of Claremont's run. There's 2 more issues after this, but they're kind of whatever. They're not filler issues, but they're not that emotional high. They're more like a fun story where the New Mutants go to Gala to hang out with the Alliance, and they have a race or something, and it's a little bit of drama happens, it's whatever. But issue 52 is kind of the emotional high, the real climax of the story, where the New Mutants just get to be together, be happy, multiple pages of just this sweet family being together. Ending, very interestingly, is with Ileana specifically connecting with Magneto. Magneto at the time is the headmaster, so this is almost like another male authority figure she connects with. Xavier, not like a perfect man by any means, he's done some things, but Magneto is the more outwardly bad guy. So Ileana, this demon princess, ruler of Limbo, a loner, has this moment to connect with leader of the evil mutants, and it is quite a beautiful thing for me. It's a very satisfying thing for Ileana, this loner finally just making peace with these parental figures and essentially almost reasserting that she is home and she's happy here, she's safe here. And Magneto finds almost this, has like during this run, finds a lot of very emotionally interesting place where he, loves these kids. He does his best for them, a little Magneto-esque way, but at the end, these two people who are definitely not perfect, both of them have a little bit of evil inside them. They find a home here, find safety, and they connect over that. And I think that's beautiful. Like Xavier's being this place where all these rejects, like Ileana, this demon queen, and Magneto, ex-villain, or Sunspot, somebody who's just like, I don't know, fighting like the most racist people on Earth, like what the fuck. Mara, somebody who is raised in like middle of a forest, out of reality. And all these people live in this very difficult, horrifying world, and yet they all come together at this school. And they find safety there, they find home, and they find love. Claremont's run, in issue 52, I think is a beautiful ending to that. Not saying that the next two issues are bad, but this really is what makes this book work. Despite it having a lot of these downsides, this light, it really ties it all together. And this is what you connect with. And I absolutely love this. Even despite all the horror, this place is home, and there's family, and all these people are safe.